S. 14, honoring victims and heroes of the shooting on January 8, 2011 in Tucson, Arizona. Whereas on January 8, 2011...
President, I ask unanimous consent further reading of the resolution be dispensed with.
Without objection.
Madam President.
Senator from Arizona.
Madam President, the resolution states that we honor the victims and heroes of the shooting on January 8, 2011 in Tucson, Arizona. And as we all know, and the nation and the world knows, that on January 8th, the gunman opened fire at a Congress on Your Corner event hosted by Representative Gabrielle Giffords in Tucson, Arizona, killing 6 and wounding 13 others. Among those who lost their lives was 9-year-old Christina Taylor Green, Dorothy Morris, Judge John Roll, Phyllis Schneck, and Dorwin Stoddard, and Gabrielle Matthew Zimmerman. Christina Taylor Green was a 9-year-old daughter of John and Roxana Green. She was born on September 11th, 2001, was a third grader with an avid interest in government who was recently elected to the student council at Mesa Verde Elementary School. Dorothy Morris was 76 years old, attended the January 8th event with George, her husband of over 50 years, with whom she had 2 daughters and who was also critically injured as he tried to shield her from the shooting. John Roll, who I will talk about later on, is a Pennsylvania native who was 63 years old. He began his professional career as a bailiff in 1972, was appointed to the federal bench in 1991, became a chief judge for the District of Arizona in 2006. He was a devoted husband to his wife, Maureen, father to his 3 sons and grandfather to 5 grandchildren, and heroically attempted to shield Ron Barber from additional gunfire. Phyllis Schneck, a proud mother of 3, grandmother of 7, and great-grandmother from New Jersey, was spending the winter in Arizona and was a 79-year-old church volunteer and New York Giants fan. Darwin Stoddard, a 76-year-old retired construction worker and volunteer at the Mountain Avenue Church of Christ, is credited with shielding his wife, Mavie, a longtime friend whom he married while they were in their 60s, who was also injured in the shooting. Gabrielle Matthew Zimmerman, who was 30 years old and engaged to be married, served as Director of Community Outreach to Representative Gabrielle Giffords and was a social worker before serving with Representative Giffords. We all know that Gabrielle Giffords was a target of the attack and was critically injured, and we overnight have received extremely good news in that her condition has been upgraded from critical to good. That's incredible news and is heartening to all of us. 13 others were also wounded in the shooting, including Ron Barber and Pamela Simon, who were both staffers to Representative Giffords, and several individuals, including Patricia Maish, Army Colonel Bill Badger, retired, was also wounded in the shooting. Roger Salzgerber, Joseph Zamudio, Daniel Hernandez Jr., Anna Ballas, and Dr. Stephen Rail helped apprehend the gunman and assist the injured, thereby risking their lives for the safety of others. Now, some of the actions that took place during this tragedy have been carried extensively in the media. The reaction of the people of Tucson and Arizona to this tragedy has been incredibly uplifting and encouraging to all of us. There's so many stories of courage and bravery associated with this action. The quick reaction of our police and other first responders was remarkable, not to mention the incredible and extremely rapid care provided by the doctors and nurses and caregivers in Tucson. So in this great tragedy that has taken place, we can again be comforted with the knowledge that our citizens reacted in the way that Americans do, with heroism, with courage, and with sacrifice. So I think it is entirely appropriate that this resolution be passed as one of the first acts of the new Congress, of the 112th Congress of the United States Senate and House. And I want to thank all Americans for their concern, their prayers, and the sympathy and support that they have extended not only to the victims, their families, but also the people of Arizona. There will be discussion for weeks and months and years ahead as to how it was possible for this event to take place. And I don't pretend to know all of the answers. It was clearly a deranged individual, an individual who perhaps we could argue, although I can't say for certain, should have been brought to the attention, his mental illness should have been brought to the attention of the proper authorities. We do have a law that provides for such a thing in the state of Arizona. At the same time, the question needs to be asked, was his actions that we now have become very aware of, were they made aware to the proper number of people that they would take such action? The fact is that it happened. The fact is that we who are elected representatives will continue to have contact with our constituents. We will do so and not be deterred by the actions of this deranged individual. We cannot allow the actions of a deranged individual prevent us from interacting in a fundamental way with our constituents. They deserve it, and I am confident that we will be able to continue the practice of the town hall meetings, Congress on your corner, the kinds of activities that are in some ways not entirely unique to the United States of America, but certainly isn't practiced in most parts of the world. So we are encouraged by the news concerning Gabrielle Giffords, and we will harbor the hope and prayer that she will return to her duties in the United States Congress, representing the people of Southern Arizona. We pray for the family of Judge John Roll and those others who gave their lives. Senator Kyle and I attended the various memorial services and events that surrounding this tragedy in Tucson, and we come away obviously with deep sorrow over the event, and yet at the same time with a great deal of pride and appreciation for our fellow citizens in Arizona and Tucson who have reacted in a heroic and giving and loving and sharing fashion. So, Madam President, I guess we will be voting on this issue sometime this afternoon, and I know that other colleagues of mine will be speaking on behalf of this resolution. With that, Madam President, I would turn to the legislation. I introduced legislation to name the United States Courthouse in Yuma, Arizona, the John M. Roll United States Courthouse. Is that legislation at the desk? No. I suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
Madam President, I ask unanimous consent further proceedings under the quorum call be suspended.
Without objection.
I call up Bill number 188 and ask for its immediate consideration.
Clerk will report. The bill will be received.
Madam President, I'm pleased to introduce legislation with Senator Kyle that would designate the soon-to-be-constructed federal courthouse in Yuma, Arizona, to be named in honor of Chief Judge John Roll, who died tragically during the senseless act of violence against Congresswoman Giffords and other Arizonans in Tucson earlier this month. I had the distinct privilege of knowing and working with Chief Judge Roll for many years. In fact, it was my honor to recommend him to President George Herbert Walker Bush for nomination to the federal bench in 1991. He served with distinction. Most recently, Judge Roll became known by so many in the state of Arizona, the Judicial Conference, and many in Congress as a tireless advocate for the plaintiffs, defendants, and judges in Arizona by working to secure additional funding and resources to assist the court in its heavy caseload. The morning of the shooting, he was in line to speak to Congresswoman Giffords, who was also a friend, about his efforts to have the Ninth Circuit declare a judicial emergency in the District of Arizona. He died doing what he did each and every day, working to guarantee the federal courts in our state were capable of handling the growing caseload while ensuring swift justice for all. Judge Roll exemplified the qualities all presidents should seek in candidates for the federal bench: intelligence, humility, integrity, and fidelity to the law. He embodied all of these qualities and many more. Additionally, he was known as a kind neighbor, a dedicated father and husband, and a loyal friend. He will now be known also as a hero. The Arizona Daily Star reported on January 20th, 2011, and I quote, "Surveillance footage of the January 8th shooting campaign in Tucson showed that Judge Roll used his body as a shield to cover the wounded Ron Barber. Roll then took a bullet to the back and lost his life in the process. The judge is a hero," Pima County Sheriff's Bureau Chief Rick Castigar said. The article states that the suspected gunman shot Barber, Congresswoman Giffords' district director. Almost simultaneously, Roll moved Barber toward the ground and both crawled beneath the table, Castigar said. Roll then got on top of Barber. Judge Roll is responsible for directing Mr. Barber out of the line of fire and helped save his life, Castigar said. Mr. Barber told the Arizona Daily Star, "That just gives me more admiration for the judge than I ever had. John Roll was a dear, dear man." Mr. Barber and Judge Roll had been friends for many years, dating back to their days as college students at the University of Arizona. Most recently, they worked together with the Arizona congressional delegation to secure funding for a new federal courthouse in Yuma, Arizona, to alleviate the congestion at the Tucson federal courthouse. In fact, Judge Roll had just reviewed the architectural drawings of the new courthouse weeks before his death and told my office that he was very pleased with the design. It's the hope of myself and Senator Kyle and every member of the Arizona delegation that the architectural designs will soon include the name of Chief Judge John Roll prominently on the building. This esteemed jurist, friend, and hero deserves this honor and much more. Our state has lost a good man, a true and able advocate for justice for all, and a great Arizonan. For this reason, I ask my fellow senators to join me in passing this legislation to allow the new Yuma Federal Courthouse to be proudly known as the John M. Roll United States Courthouse. Madam President, I suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
I suggest the absence of quorum with the